What truly happens in that fragile instant when life slips away? It's a moment that no one can escape, no matter how strong, wealthy, or full of dreams they may be. The very first seconds after death, those elusive fragments of time, are often wrapped in fear, mystery, and a haunting sense of the unknown. We avoid thinking about it because it forces us to confront something we cannot control, the end of everything we know. But if you could glimpse it, if you could feel even a fraction of what unfolds in that silent, irreversible transition, you might see life, and the choices you make in it, completely differently. The truth is, the moment the heart stops is not as abrupt as many imagine. The body doesn't simply switch off like a light bulb. It unravels. The brain, starved of oxygen, fights to keep its flicker alive for a few more seconds, sometimes even minutes. And in that fragile window, many have reported a surreal clarity. A flood of memories, emotions, even a strange calm that contradicts the chaos of dying cells. It's as if the mind knows it is standing at the doorway, one foot in what it has always known and the other reaching towards something it has never seen. Science has tried to explain this rush. Surges of neural activity, hallucinations sparked by chemical imbalance, a desperate attempt to make sense of the fading world. But what if it's more than just a biological trick? What if those seconds are the unveiling of a reality we've been blind to all along? If you've made it this far, this message resonated deeply with you. Consider subscribing to the channel. This space was created for you. Some describe a pulling sensation, not of the body but of the self. The room remains, the voices may still echo, but they begin to feel distant, like whispers from a world already behind you. Others recall an overwhelming sense of presence, whether it is light, darkness, or something they can't quite name. There's a reason why countless accounts from near-death experiences share eerie similarities, even from people who have never heard such stories before. The tunnel, the flash of familiar faces, the unbearable peace, or in some cases the opposite, an oppressive dread that makes the heart race even in death's grip. Could this be a coincidence? Or are these fragments of something far more profound than the flickering of a dying brain? Then comes the moment of realization, not for the body but for the essence of who you are, that there is no going back. This is often described as a tearing away, not of flesh but of attachment. The hands that once clung to life's certainties, your plans, your regrets, your unfinished apologies, can no longer hold them. It is here where fear often surges for those unprepared, because in that brief instant, the veil lifts, and the truth of your existence is no longer hidden behind the noise of daily survival. Some describe it as standing before a mirror that reflects not your face, but your choices, laid bare without disguise. And this is where it becomes unsettling. For some, those first seconds after death are met with a light so consuming it feels like a home they forgot existed. A love that doesn't need words, a welcome that dissolves every question they carried in life. But for others, the transition is not gentle. It is heavy, cold, and filled with a silence that screams. Not because the universe is cruel, but because the soul suddenly senses what it has always avoided facing, that the path it chose was leading somewhere, and that somewhere has now arrived. This is not punishment. It is the collision between truth and the life you lived. You might think those seconds pass quickly, that they're gone before you can even notice them. But those who've brushed close to death often say it feels stretched, suspended, as if time itself hesitates. Every heartbeat you once took for granted echoes in that pause. The rush of memories, your first steps, your mistakes, your kindnesses, your betrayals, unfold like a tapestry you didn't realize you were weaving with every decision. And then, like a tide, something begins to pull. For some, it is gentle and irresistible. For others, it is a drag into something colder, heavier. The destination is not always instant. It begins with awareness, and awareness is the first step into eternity. There is something hauntingly intimate about what follows after those first seconds, something that words can barely hold, yet it demands to be spoken. Because this is the point where the familiar truly fades. The warmth of your body, the weight of your chest rising and falling, the pulse in your veins, all of it is left behind, almost like a garment shed in haste. Many describe this as floating, not in space, but in a state of being where the boundaries of the room, the bed, the hospital, or wherever it happens no longer matter. The physical world becomes a distant hum, like the echo of a conversation you can no longer join. And then comes something that is both terrifying and astonishing, the presence of truth. Not truth as in facts or dates, but truth as in reality stripped bare. Without pretense, without the comforting stories you told yourself to sleep at night. It is as if a curtain is pulled back, and what you encounter is not always what you expected. Some speak of light, not merely as brightness, but as a presence that sees through you completely. A light that reveals in an instant who you have been, who you could have been, and what you chose to be. There is no need for words, no need for accusations. The truth simply is, and it is undeniable. For those who lived honestly, who loved even in their flaws, this moment is almost unbearable in its beauty. But for those who ran from truth, who buried their hearts beneath layers of selfishness, bitterness, or indifference, it is like standing naked before a fire that burns without consuming. This is where many near-death accounts diverge sharply. Some describe being drawn into this light, embraced by something they cannot name but have always longed for. Others feel the light retreat, or worse, feel themselves retreating from it. Not because it rejects them, but because it exposes them, and the weight of that exposure is too heavy to bear. They turn away, often into a darkness that is not merely the absence of light, but the presence of something else. Emptiness, isolation, a deafening awareness of what has been lost. And this is where the fear creeps in for so many, because we like to believe that death is a single event, a heartbeat that stops and then nothing. But what if it is a journey that begins with those seconds and stretches into something far greater? What if those initial moments are only the doorway, and what lies beyond is a path shaped entirely by the person you became while alive? Imagine realizing that your grudges, your cruelty, your silence when you should have spoken, they do not vanish with your breath. They follow you. They cling like shadows that cannot be shaken, not until they are faced. Some speak of figures waiting for them, loved ones long gone, or strangers who feel strangely familiar. Not all encounters are comforting. There are stories of warmth, welcome, and indescribable joy, but also of judgment. Not the kind shouted from pulpits, but the quiet, devastating kind that comes when you see yourself reflected in the eyes of something unshakably pure. It is not a trial with words or defenses. It is simply the moment you know. You know where you belong and why. And here is the chilling part. Time behaves differently. Seconds feel like hours. Hours feel like the blink of an eye. Some describe lingering in that space, caught between the world they left and the one they are being drawn into, unable to move forward, unwilling to let go. Regret is heavy there, almost physical. It presses down, not as punishment, but as reality. You begin to understand how each choice you made was a thread, and now the tapestry is complete. You can no longer weave it differently. But here is a quiet, profound truth that is whispered across these accounts. What happens in those first seconds after death is not about the universe taking something from you. It is about revealing what you have always carried within. The light, the darkness, the peace, the terror, they are not strangers. They are mirrors. And when the heartbeat ends, the mirror does not lie. Beyond that trembling pause, where breath has ceased and the body lies still, there is a point that countless accounts hint at. Though words stumble here, because this stage is less like a place and more like a reckoning. It is the crossing over, the moment where the path ahead begins to shape itself with terrifying clarity. If those first seconds are an unveiling, what comes next is a pulling. A slow, undeniable movement toward what has always been waiting, yet seldom understood. For many, this is where the sense of weight becomes unbearable or unspeakably light, depending on what they carried in life. Those who lived with compassion, even amidst their flaws, often describe this stage as a homecoming. A soft descent into warmth, a profound sense of being known and accepted. Not because they were perfect, but because they reached toward love when they could have turned away. The presence they felt earlier now surrounds them more fully, almost like an embrace that dissolves fear entirely. There is no more rushing, no more struggling to understand. There is simply being timeless, weightless, seen. But for others, this stage is where the shadows grow denser. The pulling becomes heavier, colder, more like a sinking than a rising. It is here that many describe a sudden, cutting awareness. This is where my choices have led me. There is no courtroom, no booming voice of condemnation, only the undeniable experience of distance, as though the very thing they now long for most, the warmth, the light, the peace, has receded not by force, but by the trajectory they themselves carved through their life. It is the great paradox. They are not cast away. They have walked away, step by step, thought by thought, choice by choice. Some encounters in this stage are unsettling because they involve others. Faces long forgotten, moments revisited not in memory but in living color. The harm done to others, the love withheld, the words spoken in anger. All of it stands with you. Some accounts speak of pleading, of wanting to go back, to repair what now seems so small yet weighs so heavily. But here, time no longer bends to your will. Regret has no currency. It is not that there is no mercy. It is that mercy was always there, and it was either embraced or ignored while the heart still beat. And yet, in some descriptions, even here there is not a finality, but a further leading. Those who find themselves in darkness often speak of being escorted, not always by what they expected, but by presences that seem to match what their soul resonates with. Some are given glimpses, chances to turn, lessons that are painful but strangely tender. Others describe a falling away so deep it feels like an exile of the spirit, a place where the absence of light is not a punishment, but a mirror of the life they clung to. This stage is not the end, it is the sorting, the beginning of the eternity you have already begun building long before you crossed this threshold. It is where what you loved most, whether that was truth or deceit, kindness or cruelty, the eternal or the fleeting, draws you to itself, fully without disguise. And here lies the most haunting truth of all. No one decides it for you. It is the unveiling of the path you already chose. What lies beyond this stage? Many call it peace, others call it judgment, some call it awakening, and some terror. The names differ, but the essence is the same. The soul arrives where it belongs, not where it wished at the last second, but where it lived to belong. If the first seconds after death are a doorway, and the stage that follows is a corridor of unveiling, this is the threshold where doors close behind you and the horizon ahead becomes the only reality left. There is no turning, no bargaining, no slipping back into the rhythm of a heartbeat. This is where the soul settles into the consequence of its becoming. For those who are drawn into light, this arrival is described as overwhelming in its beauty, so vast and whole that even the deepest pain of life seems like a distant shadow compared to the fullness of that presence. There is no need for questions because the answers are felt, not spoken. Time dissolves, replaced by a sense of being exactly where you were meant to be. Love here is not sentimental. It is consuming, transforming, absolute. People who have brushed this place often say there are no words to explain it because everything we use to measure love on earth feels small, conditional, and fragile compared to what floods them there. It is a place without striving, without hiding. Every wound is understood, every tear remembered, every act of kindness radiant. But for others, the arrival is starkly different. It is described as a vastness too cold to fill, a place where the longing for light is overwhelming yet unbearably out of reach. The silence there is not peaceful, it is crushing. It is the echo of 1,000 choices that turned away from what was offered in life. The moments of mercy rejected, the whispers of conscience silenced, the opportunities to love postponed until there were none left. This is not a chamber of fire as often imagined, but a state of being where the very absence of what could have been becomes the torment. Not because it was taken, but because it was refused, little by little, until nothing remained to hold on to. This is where eternity truly begins. There is no clock to watch, no dawn to hope for, because time is no longer a river. You have stepped out of it. You are now where you fit, where your essence harmonizes or resists. Some speak of this moment as perfect justice, terrible for some, glorious for others, because it is the one place where masks cannot follow, and truth is not a visitor but the air itself. And here is what unsettles the heart most, that this final destination is not a sudden judgment imposed at random, but the flowering of a lifetime of choices. What you desired most in life, whether that was light or shadow, becomes your forever. Those who longed for truth find themselves drenched in it. Those who ran from it find the running has ended, but the distance remains. People often ask, is there anything beyond this? Can anything change after the arrival? Accounts rarely agree. Some speak of unending separation, others of a far distant hope that even here, something beyond comprehension moves still with mercy. But none describe a return from that point. This is the moment when the story you wrote with your breath becomes the ground you now stand upon. So when you think of those first seconds after death, know this, they are not just seconds. They are the unfolding of what you have always been building. The real question is not what happens then, but what are you creating now that will meet you there? The first seconds after death are not a fantasy. They are a doorway already built by the choices you make while your lungs still draw breath. That threshold does not care about titles, possessions, or the image you protect so carefully. It responds only to the weight of your soul. Think of it, what would it feel like to stand there, stripped of noise and distraction, faced only with who you truly are? Would the light rush to meet you because it has known you all along? Or would it feel distant, like something you once brushed aside, thinking there would always be more time? This is the haunting part, time does run out. The chances you ignore today become the shadows that wait for you tomorrow. But here is the hope that makes this truth bearable, even beautiful. Right now you are still on this side. Your story is still being written. The tapestry of your life still has empty space waiting for color, for courage, for forgiveness. Whatever weight you carry, guilt, bitterness, the ache of wasted years, it does not have to be the final word. Because as long as you can feel your pulse, as long as your breath still rises and falls, you are not yet locked into that final arrival. You are still choosing, thread by thread, moment by moment. So let this not only unsettle you, let it awaken you. Live as if those first seconds after death are watching how you love today, how you forgive, how you speak, how you heal. Because one day they will. And when they come, may they find you ready. Not perfect, but willing. Not unafraid, but anchored in something deeper than fear. The quiet, powerful certainty that you lived with your eyes open to what truly matters.